Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about something called contemplation. And contemplation is an ancient technique that has stood the test of time for really shifting through any low frequencies we have within us and raising them into something that becomes our gift. So, one thing I've realized about contemplation is that our wounding and the shadow aspects of ourself, these are the greatest reservoirs of our potential in life. And oftentimes we think of them as bad, or we repress, or we shove away, or we neglect our shadow. And then what happens is we go through our life and it kind of creeps into everything else we do, but it's sort of outside of our blinders. Oftentimes, our core wounding is something that we're vaguely aware of, but we usually experience the second order effects. What I mean by that is if your core wounding is something like, let's say mine, which is chaos, I might experience frustration with other people because there's a miscommunication or something like that, where it's not actually hitting the core wound on the head. So what contemplation does is it allows us to go directly to the source, and it allows us to shift that. And as a result, as a trickle effect, all of the other smaller second order and third order issues begin to clear up in our life. And oftentimes too, when we clear up issues surrounding our core wounding, many other areas of our life improve. Our relationships seem to get better as we become clearer and we show up more directly and honestly and fully for people in our lives. Our finances get better. So a lot of the time with finances, people think, well, if I just like bought a house at the right time, or if I get the right strategist to help me with my business, it'll do well. But you know what? There's actually something that doesn't really appear like it's connected, that's actually controlling our financial situation, because it's causing leaks. And it's like whenever we receive money, it's like sand just falling right through our hands. Something else will pop out of nowhere, an expense of sorts, or we just won't be able to actually ask for what we're worth, and we compromise on our own sense of self-worth. And as a result, we end up creating this vicious cycle. So you can see there's so many elements underpinning these things in our life that we're like, I want more money, or I want to work less, or something like that. Or, I want better relationships. I want, to attract the right person. Well, guess what? We need to go back to the source of the wounding. And when we address that, then all of these other areas of life shift. And since I've discovered true sidereal astrology, which then I applied to true sidereal gene keys and link the two with human design and call it Trifecta. So Trifecta is based on the true sidereal system, and it's using innovative techniques that I honestly haven't seen anywhere else. And that's why I went and I've created this application that I've been running. If you're interested in getting a reading, it's all by donation as I'm building this out. And you can find the link below, and you'll get a reading on your core wounding. And if you already have one, if you've already gone through, like I've got about 25 readings in the queue right now. This is quite popular. So if you're watching this and you already have your reading, you're in the right place, because in this video, I'm going to show you how to apply the process of contemplation to shift through whatever low frequency or wounding is coming up, and it may have been plaguing you for decades, as in my case. I'm almost 40 years old, and my wounding, which I will share in this video, so stay tuned, has been there since the beginning, because it's actually a wound in the true sidereal system. It's a wound of our soul that allows, when we incarnate, it allows in all of the other issues and challenges through that, you could say, imbalance of that weakness. So it's the gap that allows everything else in. It's the gap that attracts negative circumstances into our life, because it's a wounding of our soul. So there's also a wounding of our personality, you could say, or our person, or the character we play in the matrix. That wound is important too, but I'm going to the deepest level with this, and this is a wounding in our essential self. It's like the meta wounding that caused all of the other wounding to form after it. So when we contemplate this and we shift the frequency of it, our reality changes. And I would say it changes for the better, because we're bringing light to where it is not currently. And upon doing that, we're able to harness the latent potential that resides in the shadow. You know, in genetics, they say 98% of our genes are junk DNA. Well, guess what? That 98% is the actual shadow of our ancestry, of before we were humans, when we were creatures, you know, crawling out of the ocean. That was a whole plight. 500 million years of evolution. And some of those were it was all an experiment. Some of those were rightful steps in the conscious evolution of species, and some of those were missteps that were never rebalanced. So we carry with us wounding that gets also imprinted on our essential selves over time. So when we know what this core wound is, because there's a correlation with our genetics and the cosmos, as above, so below. And when we can find that link and contemplate that, we can really shift it. Now, what is contemplation? That's the next thing I want to answer here. Well, we all have heard of meditation, which is largely a facet of the right brain. And meditation basically is where we find silence in the mind and we passively sit and we allow things to come up and thoughts and illusions to purge themselves over time. And because it's a passive process of observation, it's much slower and it might not lead to the areas that we're not willing to open yet in our lives. And so if we've got parts of us that are compartmentalized and shut down, they may never be addressed in meditation. They may never be opened up and aired out through the meditative process. Similarly, there's the other flip side, which is the left hemisphere of the brain. Sorry if the camera's reversed for you. And concentration is often what they find on the yogic path. So yogis would, do poses and they would focus intently on various parts of the body. It's like a laser light focus. And what concentration does is it compresses thoughts into a single bandwidth of one pointedness. And that bandwidth of one pointedness then leads to the same result as meditation does. Now, if you were to pair concentration and meditation like the ancient yogis did, you would hopefully find balance between both hemispheres of the brain. Now, that also requires that, you're aware of which one is in balance and which one's out of balance, whereas contemplation actually balances both hemispheres of the brain and activates the corpus callosum, the central brain column that activates the pineal gland that then connects coherently with the heart, which is actually where they have found neurons. It's the highest order of the brain. And so when our neocortex, our limbic system, and our reptilian brain coherently merge with the heart, we then find true coherence in our life. And that is when we biologically act in alignment. So contemplation involves both aspects. It involves taking a subject and focusing lightly upon it. I call it with the open hand. So, this glass of water, I sit here and hold it with an open hand and let it do its dance. I don't grasp it. I don't grasp the thought. I don't wrestle it. I don't judge it. I don't assign a story to it. I don't try to twist it in any way. I just let it unfold and unravel. And when we contemplate, we're focusing on something, so it engages the left hemisphere of the brain. There is an element of concentration, but we're focusing on it in a meditative way. So the way that I like to apply this, and this is something I've discovered through my own process, also being a fan of Richard Rudd's work and the Gene Keys, and he's a huge advocate of contemplation. But I found my own way to do it through shifting the frequency. And so to do this, which basically greatly accelerates results in a very particular area. So it shifts the frequency quickly. And if we apply this to the contemplation of our core wound, well, magic begins to happen. I kid you not. In just 1 week, I completely changed my life circumstances by contemplating intensely upon my own core wounding. And I'm going to share it with you in this video. So if you already have received a donation-based reading from me, you will have a very nice book that will look something like this. And maybe you have an older version of it before I changed the formatting, and I do apologize. The new ones all come nicely formatted like this. So anyway, in here, this is your reading that I use my app to determine. The first thing I do, and I have to do this by hand because it's a complicated calculation, but I take the design Mars and design Moon from human design and the gene keys, and I plot them on your astrology chart to get the house that they lie in. Once I have the house that they lie in, I can take the personality Chiron, and these are the three core wounding placements. So Chiron is I experience, and Chiron describes the slice of the collective wound that we take on as individuals. And so it's like it's our lot of healing a certain wounding within humanity. Now, it makes us feel a certain way on a very personal level. And so this basically governs our subconscious emotional states from which the rest of our emotional states arise. So this is our personalized response to how this core wounding makes us feel. And finally, because we feel a certain way, we end up placing our energy on something. Now, in the gene keys, Richard Rudd called this the vocation, this design Mars placement. So this is where we place our energy because we feel a certain way subconsciously based on our experience of our core wound. So super cool. So these three placements give us tons to contemplate. And now I'm going to reveal to you my own personal affirmation. And you have your own if you've already got a reading. If you haven't yet got a reading, again, you can grab one from the link below. You'll get this beautiful 16-page report that yours truly puts together for you. But mine is, when my wounding experiences chaos, especially in my long-term relationships and contracts, I feel limitation in my inner world and home. This is how my energy flows towards forgetting in my career and mission. So before I go on, for those who know me well, might have known that, hey, Dave took a little bit of a departure from the work that he used to do. And it was actually because some long-term relationships and contracts in my life were not operating optimally. And I felt limited by my own potential in my own inner world that, I don't share with people. And so this here, when I read this, it was like, holy geez, this is exactly this thing that's kind of been following me through my life. I really freeze when chaos happens. Chaos and me are not good friends. However, in the times in my life that I've been able to um, triumph over chaos, it's usually been born out of creating something innovative. And so here, the gene keys told me when healing occurs, I can experience innovation, especially in my long-term relationships and contracts, so that I can feel realism in my inner world and home. Then my energy flows towards mindfulness in my career and mission. So the remembering of what I'm actually here to do is based on innovation in the long-term areas that I work. So this could be a workplace contract, a contract of agreement with somebody else that's a good friend or a close acquaintance. And of course, long-term relationships also imply our partner or spouse. So being able to innovate on the way that we relate to them can lead to huge ramifications in my career. Realism here is an amazing thing. So realism is the ability to basically elicit practical magic through existing structures. So I can use the medium of YouTube to share magic and inspiration, or Zoom calls to have, mind-blowing workshops and courses that people get a lot of benefit out of. I can share my magic all over the world because of the advent of technology. That is realism. So learning to work within existing structures, learning a little bit about tech, that's kind of what led me down the e-business rabbit hole, is because I got really good at learning about systems and marketing and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, man, other people are struggling. Turns out I don't want to be building everybody's business for them. I'd rather show them how, but I'm also much more interested in this new system, Trifecta. And this is what I was forgetting, because I have been working with this for the last 20 years in one way or another. And especially 3 years ago, I was really hitting the nail on the head developing this, but it only came recently when, it was like an epiphany, an aha, a remembering. And at the highest level, my essence desires innocence. Innocence is like that kid who's just in the flow of life, so engrossed in the present moment. especially in my long-term relationships and contracts, so I can feel justice in my inner world and home. Now, justice is where the laws of reality break down. It is Judgment Day or Armageddon when we shift from one epoch to the next. So it's not, the law justice. This is a very different term. That's when I place my energy on revelation in my career and mission. And I feel like this frequency of revelation is the creation of Trifecta that came about in a very, very short period of time. I've built this entire application, which may have taken me years had I not been working with a revelation that was coming through of inspiration. So here, to actually apply, and you've got your own, if you've already got your reading, you have your own entry points. So you have your own entry for chaos, for limitation, and forgetting. So whatever those words are for you, make sure you know what they are. Also make sure what the next frequency layer is. So chaos becomes innovation, becomes innocence. Limitation becomes realism, becomes justice. Forgetting becomes mindfulness, becomes revelation. So now we're actually going to do the contemplative practice. I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to come back to here so you can see my face nice and large. And I'm going to actually show you what contemplation is about. So for contemplation, you do want quiet. You don't want to be driving. And you want to just take anything else, because it does involve an aspect of concentration. So take anything else that might be bothering you or anything else on your mind you're thinking of, what you're doing for dinner, any household items, take it and put it in a safe container. You can come back to it later. This is the important part. You don't get rid of it. You just put it away for now and say, I'm going to put this on the shelf. I'm going to put this beside me, and I'm going to focus so I have all my awareness and presence. And then you begin to feel through the layers of the body. So you can keep your eyes open or closed. It really doesn't matter. If you have a heightened nervous system, eyes open are much better for you because your nervous system will feel safe being able to see the environment. If you're more comfortable with your eyes closed, you can close your eyes too. Whatever feels better for you. But just feeling the body, this is the important part. Feeling into the body, feeling into your sit bones on your seat, your feet on the floor. Really honoring the force of gravity, holding your organs and skeletal structure in place. And feel the density of this earth layer. Breathing into it, noticing how it responds with each exhale and inhale. Now we're going a layer deeper into the fluids of the body. This is the blood, the lymphatic system, the life force, the prana. As your attention observes this water layer, it automatically begins to open up any constriction, any restriction. It allows life force to flow with more ease. And if you do notice any spots where there is contraction or constriction, just focus on them lightly and breathe into them. Good. Increasing the fluidity of your life force, your blood, your lymphatic fluids, their easeful flow through the body. As we go a layer deeper now into the cellular activity. 50 trillion cells, each with 0.07 volts, means you're alive with 3.5 trillion volts of electricity. So feel that layer of electricity potential coming alive within you, tuning into your own cell voltage. Going deep within the biology, deep within the organism. Finally, the deepest layer, the DNA. DNA exists between dimensions. It's a liquid crystalline solution, salty solution. So it responds with great sensitivity to frequency. So as we calm ourselves and we move into this more relaxed frequency, our heart begins to emit electromagnetic pulses that soothe the DNA and make it more receptive to change. Focusing on one single strand, because DNA is holographic, it's repeated fractally through every cell in the body. So just one strand is enough to make a correction, and that will be imprinted on the rest of them. So tuning in and giving space to that shadow of the core wound. For me, it's chaos. So I'm going to give space to chaos for a minute here and allow it to be. It's not bad, simply a shadow. There's no sense in repressing it or trying to throw it away and project it outward. It's here. It's just simply a genetic imbalance that I've inherited both on a essential level and on a genetic level. Giving space to chaos and feeling that it causes. For me, it's limitation. For you, it will be something else. Giving space to both of these now. And now that third thing, where you end up placing your energy. Giving space to forgetting for me. Chaos causes me to feel limitation. It causes me to place my energy on forgetting. Continue to give space and really feel into this. It's great if you do this in front of a mirror as well, so you can see yourself in your eyes. I've got the screen in front of me so I can see myself on camera. Now, once you feel like you've given it enough space, shift the frequency. From that lower shadow bandwidth, play into the next one, from chaos to innovation. And I observe and feel how that chaos coagulates, unifies into a bright, scintillating new direction. For you, it may be different. You might have another core wounding. You have your words. Just say them aloud, even if you understand it or not, it doesn't matter. Just shift into the frequency of that and notice the change happening. A change happening on the blueprint holographic genetic level. This is the power of contemplation. To be able to explore in your inner life and give life to these words of power. And as I experience this innovation, I feel realism. My energy wants to flow in towards mindfulness. My senses are heightened. My mind is sharp and clear. And you can try dropping the frequency back down and giving some space for the shadow bandwidth again. It's not bad. We're just reattuning it. We're oscillating between going up and coming down. And then back up into the bandwidth of innovation. And just asking if I can push it a little higher into innocence. What does innocence feel like? Is this possible right now? Yes, it is. I could be completely innocent, completely in the flow like a child, like a beginner's mind, in the flow of life. So graceful. And I can feel that breaking down of the laws of constraints in my body. Justice is the term. And how my energy flows towards revelation. Wow. This is the beauty of contemplation. The frequency right now is much higher than it was even 8 minutes ago. You can remain here if you like. Or you can slowly bring yourself back into a awareness that allows you to move through your day, perhaps opening your eyes and slowly moving the body, breathing. The state of aliveness, of raising our own frequency, raising the frequency of our core wounding, takes so much baggage and pain and suffering away. And naturally, we feel much better. And we'll observe how our energy flows into rightful actions as a result of this. You may need to work with contemplation over a period of time. For me, I just did it for about maybe a week and a half, and I noticed a huge difference. I have done this in the past, but I hadn't contemplated my core wounding, as this is all new. So having worked with this in terms of my core wounding was indeed revelatory. I'd love to hear any experiences you have with this. Feel free to drop a comment below from this experience. And if you're curious about this process of contemplation and have not yet received your Trifecta core wounding reading, you may do so below. It is available to all by donation as I'm building this system. It does take me some time to put it together. However, I want it to be available to everyone because this is such a profoundly powerful way to shift our frequency, especially during these times when there's so many distractions and it's so loud out there and everybody's got their own opinion and everyone's a bit jangled. We have this way of coming back in, not spending years in a cave meditating, just raising the frequency. And we have such sophisticated means of doing this that converge both science and consciousness. So thank you very much for watching this video on contemplation. I hope it was extremely helpful for you. And yeah, I'd love to hear your experiences below. Take care.